Hey, I'm Nick Von Brack, and this is the Record Podcast. Thank you for checking out another episode. If this is the first episode you are checking out, thanks for doing that. This is a very special episode to me for a myriad of reasons. If you've checked out the past few episodes or any of those, you may have heard me reference to this, that I'm very excited about it, and that the guest is someone that I was hoping to get on since the beginning, and that has come to fruition. But before we get into that, I want to address something. Something came to my attention, something I already kind of knew about for years, and recently a friend of mine. So here's basically what happened. My buddy Tristan Hammond, who's in the band The Felix Culpa, I'm actually going to get him on the show sometime, hopefully in the near future. He posted something on Facebook and kind of rejogged my memory. It's something that happens in a lot of bands and other industries too, but that I don't think is very common that you'd think, but I think it's out there and it happens more often than we realize. Basically, and I could go as far to not say his name to protect him, but why should I protect him? Because he has certainly not done that for people he cares about. But his name is Nabil Sheikh, and he's someone who's been involved with many bands as a tour manager, as a merch person, and he's kind of an on the road, behind the scenes guy, or off the road doing T-shirts and creating content for different bands. Well, this is someone who actually he came out with Dr. Manhattan in the early days when we went on one of our first little bitty tours, little like weekend tours with some friends, the Butcher the Vet, and he ended up helping create T-shirts during Jam Dreams cycle. And he was kind of involved in and out of the band. Well, he was a merch person. He was involved with the Felix Culpa. He's been involved with a lot of bands. But he has gone out of his way to basically screw over many bands by pocketing money, by making promises and not following through with them, and by just being a generally shisty person. And he's done it yet again. I guess the story is that he's out in California, I think LA, and he just recently ripped off some stuff from a band, and he did it not that long ago to another friend, Steve Nofsinger, who is of that band that I mentioned, the Butcher the Vet, and he stole some of his gear, some studio monitors and things. So this is someone that is looking at musicians and people creating and doing, following their dreams and doing good in the world, and he is taking from them. And it's someone that I want to be held accountable, and I want him to get his comeuppance. There are a lot of people doing good things in the world, and he is not one of them. And he's just being a leech, and he's taking and doing hurtful things to bands that I don't know, people I don't know, but also people I do know and love and care about. So, for all of those you out there who are doing this, just stop and think about, not only is this affecting that specific band, that specific person, but all the people that they create for, all the people who support them, and just realize that you need to maybe just stop and think about what you're doing, and maybe go and do some good in the world and stop being a piece of shit. So if anyone knows about his whereabouts, feel free to report him to the police. Feel free to pass information along. I just shared Tristan's status on Facebook, and I see a lot of people doing the same thing, trying to get the word out. If you know people who are like this, there wasn't really a dialogue going on for a while between all these bands. I think everyone just kind of rolled their eyes and hoped he wouldn't do it again. But get the word out. Put their name up. Let people know about these people, because they're just going to go and hurt somebody else and continue this cycle. So it's something that happens behind the scenes, probably more than we realize. The music community is a big one, and everyone tries to help each other out. But there's also pieces of shit like this, and they need to be stopped. So spread the word on people like this. Spread the word on this specific person, and let's hope he gets what's coming to him. But on a less bummer note, on a more happy note, just a random other tidbit too. I saw today on the SoundCloud stats that I got listeners in Australia, India, the Philippines, Latvia. I mean, we're worldwide, and it's really awesome. Even if it's just one person in those countries, that's awesome to me. Hit me up, get in touch if you're from those places or any places that are not of this country. I'd love to get your 2 cents on the podcast and what you think about it. But in regards to this episode, the very special one, the one I've been hinting at and getting at, well, if you clicked on the episode, you already saw who I'm interviewing, but it's his name is Ian Metzger. He is formerly of the band Deer in the Headlights. Well, only formerly because they're not a band, not because they're still a band. And he's currently of the band The Gentle Hits. And this one's really special to me. I'm a huge Deer in the Headlights fan. Their 2 albums have a special place in my heart. Top 10 albums for me. And I never got to see him, and we kind of get into that. I never got to see him, never got to play with him or anything, and we were around in our bands at the same time, and it's a bummer to me. I really wish I could have made that happen. But we got into some good stuff. He's a super nice guy. He's very, very cool about doing it, and it was always hitting me up trying to get it done, and we were trying to do it for a while, and it just didn't work out, but now here we are with the episode. So we talked about a lot. We talked about his music history, talked about dealing with loss, some really heavy stuff, moving cross country, coming home again, kind of what the album's about, which consists of those things and some other things in his life, and just kind of his journey in his life and where he was and where he is now. And it was really cool for someone this podcast is really cool for me for a lot of reasons. This one specifically is just getting to meet someone you really look up to and you like what they're creating, and then being able to get some behind the scenes stuff from that person on those things. So it's really cool. And the new Gentle Hits album is coming out November 18th. Make sure to go and support the Gentle Hits and get that album. If you're at all a fan of Deer in the Headlights, I'll be very surprised if you're not a fan of this album, this band. It's it feels like album number 3 from Deer in the Headlights or something. It's really cool. Ian's writing is still right there, still right in the pocket. And if you listen to the end of this podcast, I'm not sure how people listen to this if they don't listen to the whole thing, but I always put try to always put a full song at the end from that artist. And so there is a Gentle Hits song at the end of this, so you can check it out there. And make sure to go and get the album November 18th. It's really good. I've listened to it a few times. It's really solid. So I'm gonna apologize in advance for the recording quality of this one. Skype sometimes is great and other times not so great, so bear with me on that. But dive into this very special episode, one that's gonna be one that I always hold close to my heart, and you don't get to interview your heroes very often. So let's check this one out. It's my interview with Ian Metzger.
Did the seesaw nights put their hands on you? I can't really say. I can't really say. Are you swinging from the eaves in a tasteful noose? I can't really say. I can't really say.
Who's that back there?
Stella.
Hi, Stella.
Hi.
What are you guys up to? Oh, and we got another one. Who's that back there?
Answer to.
We're playing Bubbles.
Bubbles? Awesome. I don't want to interrupt bubble time. Looks great out there. Nothing. It looks you got a nice little spot back there.
Got a little backyard here.
Yeah.
Some bubbles going on.
Awesome. Yeah, I don't want to hold you up from bubble time. Now I feel bad.
You're good.
So you've got 3 girls, right?
So
yep. That's Stella, and who is the one in the back with the bubbles?
That's Jane in the back.
Jane, okay.
Kira's inside doing homework.
Oh, wow. You got a full setup going on there.
And I'm in school.
Oh, Stella?
Okay, what grade are you in, Stella?
I'm just in kindergarten.
Okay. That's pretty cool. You like it? That's great. So this is your backyard I'm looking at? Very cool.
It's Nick.
You
never heard of him?
That's okay. Not many people have. So aside from Bubbles, what else is going on this evening?
Not much. My wife had to go do a community service street cleaning project, so she's off doing that, and I'm just having a beer here in the back and hanging out during supervising bubble time. So
just having a good old dad time, looks like.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I mean, I'm just glad that this actually worked between flipping back and forth on Skype and text and everything. This is a long time coming. So thanks for doing this, man.
Absolutely. How's your baby? Is she good?
She's good. She's got like some goopy eyes going on, and as the night goes on, the fever will start to go up. So it's like, the witching hour.
Right.
Yeah. So as soon as I'm done with this, it'll be back to duty, as you will be back to duty over there.
I'll probably be on duty this whole time.
You know what? That's great. I love it. I'm loving seeing the girls run around back there and just play with the bubbles. This is great. So yeah, man, talk to me. I guess let's just start recent. Let's talk about the new album. We can work our way back. How'd that all come together?
And this album's been in the works for a good 4 years. Started writing the songs about 4 years ago. Had moved up to the state of Washington for was there for about 2 years, and the process of writing kind of started once I got up there.
Okay.
So my wife and I left Arizona and we moved to this little town outside of Bellingham, Washington.
Okay.
So if you're up in Bellingham and you go a little past a town called Deming, it's kind of this logging town up Mount Baker Highway. We were just a little bit past that, and we rented this log cabin that was wood heated for $500 a month. And
nice.
And it was like 4 bedrooms and 3 stories and, no one behind us. So it was this, I don't know, we just kind of wanted to escape society for a little bit and try something different. So we cruised out there and I started working on the record and grabbed a job in town working at Trader Joe's at the grocery store in Bellingham. And then just kept working on the album up there. And then unfortunately, about a year and a half after being up there, my dad got really, really sick. And
that's awesome.
So he got liver and pancreatic cancer. And so we had to,
man.
Yeah. So it was just horrible, like a horrible time in my life. He actually went into the ER on my mom's birthday because he passed out at work. And then basically after they started running blood tests, after he passed out at work, they discovered that he had cancer. And 2 months after that, he passed.
My God, so man.
This insane, roller coaster of whatnot, dealing with that and coming back here to just support my mom and not, kind of leave her to deal with everything on her own. And so we came back down and I decided, well, I got all these songs and I really want to finish them. But at this point it was, the songs had kind of taken on this like idea of, I'd moved up there to Washington and it's the opposite of Arizona entirely. It's like I'm here in the middle of this desert and it doesn't look very desert behind me right now.
No, it's pretty green back there actually.
It's like suburb rainy afternoon happening right now. It's a complete illusion. Up there it was just this whole kind of like I think my wife and I felt like we were kind of recreating ourselves or something in a way where it's like you move to a new place, you don't know anybody,
right.
Nobody knows you don't have any sort of, no one has like a reference on who you used to be or any sort of gauge. So you can kind of just be someone new because you're not really held accountable by anybody that you used to be or, any sort of past reference. So there was kind of this, like these early starts of songs kind of about like, reappearing or reemerge. Like the first song on the new record, Small Minute, is kind of just this like, I headed up to like do this thing and try to like be reborn, but then you kind of like everywhere you go, there you are.
Yeah.
And so I think the funniest part about it's trying to talk about this. It's like I don't want to be offensive to anybody, but I feel like it's not uncommon to feel like if you just leave behind everything head somewhere else where nobody knows you, then you can truly start over because everything around you here is the actual problem.
Yeah.
And then it's funny because when you actually take the jump and be like, screw it, I'm just going to disconnect. I'm going to go do this thing. And you do it and you land there and you're kind of like, wow, I'm still dealing with all the same problems in my own head without anybody around.
Yeah.
So like,
yeah, I don't know what's worse.
I was creating quite a bit of this like production going on around me. And so as I got basically as I realized that there's no sort of like physical location that can transform you.
Right. Yeah.
It's kind of just I don't know. It's like a mountain, you know. Just weather just kind of wears it down after a while, and that's kind of the only way that you really change. You know,
well, that's the only way you got to figure it out too, is by going there and realizing, all right, it's still here, it's still all with me.
It's still me, you know. It's like I'm cycling on the same old dumb crap that I've always been trouble with, you know.
Yeah.
And so coming back, I took care of my dad. He passed away. I came down for about 2 weeks and was at the hospital constantly, but then I decided, we were at the hospital and the hospital was telling us like, hey, you may have 5 years, maybe 2.5 years, who knows? Like, and then it was, truthfully, it was 2 months.
Jesus.
And so, and I got that feeling, like when I saw him, I just had this feeling like we need to move back now.
Yeah.
Like I know the doctors are telling me too. You just kind of get that gut understanding of something, even though all sort of logical or intellectual information is telling you differently.
Right.
And so I went with it, and I got back, and he passed away 4 days after I moved back. So upon hearing that he had cancer and was diagnosed that day that he passed out at work, I started making plans at that point to move back, essentially. Yeah. And amazingly, we got everything finished in about a month and a half, and my work transferred me, and all this stuff worked out that we were able to come back and make that happen. And so then my father passed, and I kind of had just started to kind of get this idea of wanting to put another band together and to try to finish these songs. And so I started the process of finishing some of the songs, and trying to recruit, more members. I started trying to call Mark, my old drummer from Deer in the Headlights, but our phones never work, and it's like this deal. And so he called me, and like I never got his message, and I called him saying, hey dude, I'd love you to come play drums, and he never got the message. But he was just giving me the cold shoulder or whatever. So I started trying out all these different drummers and going through the whole process again, like we did with Deer in the Headlights. And the same deal, like went through probably another 10 or 11 people trying to get this project together. Once we had this small group of people, we went in and tried to decide that we, all these connections. Like James is also the part of band. He's been called What Laura Says. Out here in Phoenix, and they did some national touring too. They went out with like Annuals and some other cool bands like that. And he joined the band because one of the drummers that I had come over and try to work with was his old drummer from band. And so his old drummer was like, dude, like you're still trying to kind of work these songs out. I kind of think James would actually be a better fit. And it was funny because I didn't have his number and had lost contact with him since I moved to Washington. So Greg hooked me back up with James's number, and James and I had always talked about doing music together because we'd done some tours together back with What Laura Says and Deer in the Headlights. Okay. And so I gave him a call and was like, hey man, I got all these songs written, and I've always really loved your style, and what you bring to the table musically. So, would you be interested in working on any of these things with me? And he was super excited about the idea. So, so we kind of started the process there, and we're thinking that we were going to go into a studio and just record this. We didn't have any serious recording knowledge of our own at this point. And so we went in and they quoted us, like, yeah, we can totally do the record. It'll be, $15,000. And, and we're all working as like servers at a restaurant, right, or drivers or Uber drivers or whatever. And so we're kind of looking at each other like, it's already been like 2 years since we've been working on this thing.
Right.
What are we going to do? Like, how it's going to take us like 2 more years to try to come up with 15 grand.
Sure.
This small group of people that don't have any. Are you showing me a bubble here? What do you got? Bubbles on?
That's a great looking bubble. Professional bubbles.
And so at that point, we kind of just decided we wanted to record it on our own. Yeah. And I'd been lucky enough to have this friend who had purchased all this kind of low end, but not bad at all audio gear, like an 8 preamp unit, and had bought some like SM57s and a couple, maybe 1 or 2 condenser mics.
Nice.
Or whatever. And he said stuff to do this record with this guy, and this guy completely like bailed out on the idea altogether. So I've got, a couple $1,000 worth of, it's like, I don't know how you want to borrow it indefinitely and try to learn how to record.
Wow.
And I was like, absolutely to learn this, because I can't afford to record in a studio and pay 15 grand a month. So I spent the next probably year just out in the garage every single night, just tracking, trying to get things to sound better, trying to learn how to use the microphones. Endless tutorials online and videos, and like recordingrevolution.com, like Graham and Pensato's Place, and just these endless tutorials of how to use audio. I went to the library and checked out every single audio book that they had available and read every single one of them cover to cover. And after probably like 2 years of just going insane with it on a daily basis, I mean, hours, a day, realistically messing with it, I kind of felt like, I'd gotten to this point like, all right, maybe I could record some of my own stuff. Like maybe, the raw tracks that I'm getting aren't horrible, like they used to be. So we decided after a while, kind of collectively, that we were just going to track it ourselves, and that way we would have the kind of the self-sustaining ability once this record's out to continue to more rapidly release our stuff, and so kind of really what the record ended up being about through this process of moving and being sucked into this other world, and then being pulled back to here and dealing with my father's death, having a new baby in the process, having all this stuff going on. The record just kind of ended up being about the last 5 or 6 years of my life entirely. And so dealing a lot with the passing of my dad, dealing a lot with just the frustrations and irritations of working jobs that you're not incredibly stoked about, and wishing you were doing something else. And then also the other concept of kind of like you have to keep your head on and finish your ideas and go forward with what you want to do, because it's interesting to you anyway. So I think that the record kind of ended up being a almost like a concept album, but just purely about my own life, and which wasn't intentional. It just kind of once I'd realized, I think with my songs, it's kind of like the stuff that impacts me the most ends up being what I decide to write about,
Yeah.
So it's kind of like whatever. And sometimes it's a little slanted because obviously when I'm, out here like having bubble time with guys or whatever, I'm not like sitting down and writing about it, because I'm feeling good. When you're up and you're happy, you're not like, I'm going to go hole myself up in my bedroom alone and write.
Right. Yeah.
You'd rather be feeling the sun and, and enjoying yourself. So I think that, there's an element of kind of sadness and more of like a therapy session, essentially, of writing that goes on with the songs. Because it's funny, because when I talk to people that I know, they're like, man, your records are like, they're so sad and heavy, but then like, I hang out with you and you're not a sad or like heavy dude.
Yeah.
So, and there's elements of that there. Like I'm definitely introspective and regularly considering my effect on things around me. But so that I think everything that kind of came up for me and was really intense and emotionally unsettling is kind of what I chose to go after on this record, and more in a sense to try to wrangle my own sanity in the process, and not just let it go and try to pretend like it's not really ruining me, what I mean, at the same time. So
well, what a great way to do it too. I mean, everyone has a different way of going about dealing with crazy stressful ordeals like that, but to be able to have that outlet of not only music, but like it's almost like you said, you could just kind of put together these songs, or if you have like a focus of, you already have in mind, you want to make this album, then it's almost like you're just honing it in, giving yourself like a real reason to get through that, instead of just kind of like float ideas, and like the process can take however long. But having an album in mind, it almost forces you to like, not to rush through dealing with that problem, but like, it's like, all right, I'm just going to get this all out of me. Like whether people want to hear it or not, this is coming out, and that's how I'm getting through it.
Right. And I think kind of, it's funny because I talked to, some friends. Like I had this one friend who's like, dude, I can't go watch, I was talking to him about some movie or something. It's like, I really like The Fountain, or like, like Tree of Life or something like that. Where it's like, it's offering some sort of, spiritual depth, that you're to consider at that point. But, he's like, dude, I can't stand going to movies like that. And I'm like, I was asking him, I'm like, why? Like, what's the reason? And he's like, dude, he's like, real life is hard enough.
Yeah.
I don't want to go sit on my free time and be reminded of how difficult it really is,
It's true too. My wife is the same way. We'll be like, we'll always put on some comedies or something every now and then, be like, oh, there's a good documentary, like it's about whatever, these dying elephants. She's like, I don't, life is already too much of a bummer. Like, I don't want to just now sit and be also bummed out about something else I can't even really do anything about. Right. I'm like, I get it. All right, fair enough.
Yeah. So so for me, part of the time I'm kind of like, I put this stuff out, and I think it ends up being, useful a lot of times, because it does engage with subjects that people often would probably rather avoid.
Right.
Frankly. And so, but it's like it's a select group of people, like there's the people that are like, you know what, I do need some help investigating this or that about life or about myself, or or whatever, and because that's exactly what I'm doing within me, and that's what's coming out in the songs, then we can be on the same page, or we can relate at that point, but if you're looking for like, it's Friday night and I want to have fun, you're not putting my record on.
That's the name of this episode. That's like the review for this record. But that's perfect too, because like you say, for some people it is like, what, life's already too hard, I don't want to have to sit and think about it. But for other people, it is a thing of like, what, it's nice to know I don't want to know other people are going through terrible shit, but it's nice to know someone else is going through something, even if it's the same exact thing, if it's something completely different, but you're just both just hurting in all these different ways and trying to process it. So it's like your album, anybody's albums that, you know, kind of piece through that. It's a way for them, those people, to work through this, and otherwise, you know, they could be trying to work or write their own albums, but, you know, being able to connect, know someone out there in the world is going through the same thing. It's like, oh, okay, my life isn't like, there's someone going through this with me. Like, it's going to be all right.
And the best part about it is that it's through this other kind of medium, you know, where like you're pulling these kind of you're pulling these things out of the thin air, you know, these emotions and these feelings, you know, whether it be a painting or a poem or a song or a sculpture or anything like that. Some of these things just capture these moments that can be so profound and intense, but at the same time painful to look at. And yeah, like you're saying, you know, to have those images take you to a place that lets you know, like, oh, I am not the only person, you know. I mean, that's what was made, like going to when I got a chance to go to Italy and Ireland and these places years back, you know, seeing these old statues, seeing these old, you know, monuments, and especially Michelangelo's work. Yeah, like you're blown away that people, you know, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years ago really weren't feeling all that different, you know? And it's kind of like, I love that. I love the humanity of all of it. 'Cause I think regularly people are experiencing things that are difficult to the point that they really feel like they don't know how to handle them. Or if one more thing like this happens, I'm going to lose it. You know what I mean? And a lot of us are always in that place, whether it be through your finances or through some situation at home that's just seems to be, you know, unresolvable, or, you know, whatever. We're all dealing heavily. And so I just don't see any point in ignoring it. You know, I think it's got to be talked about, personally, but what go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, do you ever? So like, I'll find it either in songwriting or even in like just conversations. Like, I'll have this stuff kind of in me that I don't even know about, and then as soon as I start talking to someone, as soon as I start writing, I'm like, where did that come from? Like, do you ever, like, for some people it is a meticulous, like, all right, I want to deal with this situation in this exact way. And I feel like for other people, similarly like me, it's like, I don't even know where this stuff was in the back of my head. Like, do you come across any of that in your songwriting?
Yeah, because the way that I end up writing is I'll play a song, and it'll usually be a chord progression that I really enjoy, and I'll start to make up this melody over the top of it. But I'm not using any sort of real words when I'm making a melody. But these sort of stream of consciousness ideas will seep through. So it's like I'll be saying, like I was talking on this blog the other day with this guy Adam about, it's like this Sims language, you know, where you're it sounds like English, but it's definitely not. It's more just kind of trying to sort out your vowels and consonants. But every once in a while, these real lines will slip in, like real words will just kind of like, you'll just say them, and you're like, and you kind of look at it like, do I feel like that? You know what I mean? Like, like this song is totally evoking this feeling or this emotion, and you kind of have to wonder, you know, is that actually how I feel? And a lot of times it's like, shit, that is actually how I feel. And then, like you said, it does just kind of seep out of this subconscious place where you're like, God damn it, I really didn't want that to bother me as much as it does.
It's weird how that can happen, because I feel like some people are so very thoughtful in that way, where they're like, well, this is how I feel, so this is how I'm going to talk. And there's so many situations I come across where I'm just like spewing shit out, and I'm like, what? Where was that even in my world? Right. Like, it's just so weird how you can store this stuff away and never even come across it until you have moments where you're like, the chips are down, and all of a sudden these things are just coming flying out of you.
Yeah.
But and I hate for those things to have happened to create this, but it really is an awesome album. I mean, you can't be proud of that, man. Like, I appreciate you letting me check it out, but I've listened to it a few times, and it's, I mean, being a big fan of Deer in the Headlights, this was like I said, this very, very much could have been a third Deer in the Headlights album. It felt very like natural coming from that songwriting to this, and really, if there are any fans from Deer in the Headlights, they absolutely have to listen to this, because it's just like it's. I was talking to somebody about it because there's another podcast that we gab back and forth a little bit, and we're both big Deer in the Headlights fans, and I was like, all right, I don't want to brag, but I may or may not have the Gentle Hits album, but you're not getting it. I'm sworn to secrecy. And we were just talking a little bit, and I was like, it's like Deer in the Headlights if they went like folk country, almost, like just and in a way that's not in a way that's like, oh, I know exactly what that is by that description, in a way that's like, this just feels like the natural progression of Ian's songwriting. So it's to know all that backing story to it, to know that you recorded it yourself. It's like, okay, now I got to listen to it again and like hear it, listen for these lines and like hear this stuff, like really connect to it. It's really awesome.
We recorded it and produced it ourselves, and so I think and that gives me an added feeling about the whole thing, because it's kind of like, at this point, in the past, like our last 2 records were with Bob Hogue, and he's an incredible human being and a great dude, and he does a great job at what he does. But there was always this ability to, like, if someone's like, dude, I don't really like the record that much, I like you guys better live, or whatever whatever thing people decide they want to tell you, there would be this opportunity at that point to go, well, I didn't produce the whole thing myself, and you could shift the blame. But I think that, like, with this one, this whole record is all just us, it's like every guitar tone, everything going on with the drums, everything, it's like we chose those sounds. And obviously Chris Kasich, that mixed it, did an insanely amazing job. And we were, of course, totally petrified to hand him the raw tracks, because he's an amazing mix engineer. So it's like, oh Lord, like, here's my first attempt at recording stuff, please make this sound better. Type of a thing. But knowing that we chose every guitar tone, we chose every part, we produced the entire thing. It's like, if you don't like these songs, then you just don't like what I do. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Like, if you just stumbled across this not knowing you, then maybe okay. But if you're coming from already a history or having listened to Deer in the Headlights, it's like, I would be very surprised if someone said, nah, not for me. It's like, this is right in the way, right in the wheelhouse.
Just be there. There'll always be those people that, it's like, once we passed out the demo and gave all these rough home recordings, then we made a real album with Bob and got that out to people. Of course, you had the first 500 people that ever heard the demos being like, what happened on the record? Dude, I thought the demos were like so good, and then like the record just sounds like all clean and what, so like you'll always get those people that are kind of like, well, it was the first thing I heard, so it was my favorite, and so I think that that's whatever. But I don't know, at least this time around, it's just like, if you don't like it, then you don't like me, and you don't like my style and what I decide is important, so please go listen to something else, and we'll keep on with the people that like it,
Well, and similarly to your storyline of moving to Washington, starting over, I mean, while this is similar to old songwriting, it is a new project, it is a new name, it's like, it isn't like a restart for you musically. So in that way, it allows you to not have any expectations, really. Like, you had as long as you needed to write the album. I mean, there is that thing of like, you have your whole life to write your first album, and then after that, your second album, it's like, it's shorter and shorter because there's that expectation. So it really seems like it really freed you to do, the album that you wanted to do.
Yeah, essentially it did. And it's not that, with Equal Vision, it's not like, there was some sort of timetable, like you need to have your next record out in 6 months, you know, and then you're just forced to like jam in all these songs that don't really make any sense. But with this, I think it was just that I had the opportunity to have Deer in the Headlights end and then just focus on my songwriting for essentially for the next 8 years.
Yeah.
You know, we're coming up on 2017 and Deer in the Headlights didn't put their last record out in 2008, you know, or something like that. So, you know, really it's not that I ever even stopped playing music. It's like, I probably played more music than I ever did. It's just no one heard it.
Yeah. Man,
I didn't put any of it out, you know?
It's funny to me. So I should have started here and I meant to, but it's okay. Well, we're at it here. So my story or my connection to even you or Deer in the Headlights, like I had not known the band at all. And I worked on like an animation lyric video project for this band We Came as Romans, who was on Equal Vision, and it was for Francesca Caldera, who worked at Equal Vision. Yeah. So it was for her, and I mean, this was in 2011, and she was. I think I was saying I was trying to mooch like gear out of her, some Equal Vision merch and stuff out of her. I was like, oh yeah, and if you want to just chuck me some free stuff, go ahead. She's like, all right, and so she like sent me a shirt and some stuff, but she sent me, I think, both downloads of both albums, and immediately, I don't remember if she sent me anything else musically, but immediately I was like, what is this? And probably, you know, different people have had different experiences or connections to those albums, but for me, both those albums came out at the same time to me. It was given to me at the same time. So I've only ever really listened to those as like one long piece, and
one big
which I'm sure for you is like, well, Jesus, that was like years and years of toiling away, totally two different mindsets. But it was like, so anytime I've heard it, and I think actually because alphabetically they're reversed, I thought the later album was the first album into the second. So it's like my view of the band is completely switched and reversed. But like, needless to say, huge fan, and awesome. having not heard of you guys, and especially because the band I was in at the time, that was around at the time that you guys were touring, I was like, oh my God, that makes me so mad. Not only just for not having heard the band, but that had I heard you guys, I would have been like hustling us to like get on a tour or like open a show or play with you guys. Like I would have been busting my ass. Like that was a lot of the bands we toured with we're like, how do we get on tour with that band? Or like we play with someone and they'll take us or something, you know how that goes. But I was like, oh, that just fucking breaks my heart that we could have possibly, I mean, we were in that same timeline and could have made that happen. So such a bummer. So whereas I guess the Gentle Hits had this whole process that you had to go through to create that album, did you find yourself like thinking back on the way you wrote the Deer in the Headlights stuff? Like, was it a similar thing of just going through life and making these albums, or was it kind of a different songwriting process for that band because it's, you know, obviously different band members and a different like whole setup in your life?
Yeah, I mean, totally different process. I think, but more similar probably to the Small Steps record, where I wrote most of those songs on my own and then brought them to everybody.
Okay.
And so by the time that I had finished these songs, I was kind of once again in that position where, all right, I finished another 15 songs, and now I'm gonna bring them to these guys and see what we can do with them, you know. Whereas like with Drunk Like Bible Times, we were trying to kind of, hey lady, we got a guest back. We were trying to kind of have everyone's creative input be more equal.
Yeah.
And we're moving more towards that as a band. So yeah, this one was definitely like, as far as chord structures go, as far as lyrics go, uh, the vocal melodies go, I had most of that finished, and then Mark and James and our buddy Wayne came in and came up with bass ideas and drum ideas and guitar parts to help fill in kind of what was already a solid song structure.
Yeah.
So kind of my method always in general has been, if you can't write a song that sounds good with just you and acoustic guitar, then you don't really have a song.
Yeah.
At that point, and so and some people would probably find case to argue with that and show me wonderful examples to be able to back their case up. But for me, that's always worked incredibly well, as just like, if I have a solid song that I can just play by myself and you feel like, dude, what do you even need to add to that? Like, that's already a cool idea. Then to me, that's the starting point of like, all right, and let's add a band to it, because that'll be even way more fun and will sound even cooler, So, and I just love working with other people, and like the stuff that James brings to the group, his understanding of harmony and rhythm and his melodic complement to the songs. James is the one that did all the backups on the record.
Okay.
He's the other voice you hear on like I'm Only on Your Side.
Sure.
He's a great singer, and just his understanding of melody is brilliant. And so when you get something that you think is already good, and then you add in like Mark, who's amazing at rhythm and his understanding of song flow and other dynamics, and you get James's melodic understanding and all this other stuff added in, like, it's only going to be better at that point, and only more fun in general, so.
This is breaking my heart, because now I pulled up the Wikipedia page, and just knowing, so we toured with Fever for the March of Flames. So I was like, just one more step from, so my band was Dr. Manhattan, and we opened for Fever for the March of Flames and this other band, Heavy Heavy Lolo, on this tour, which is basically it was called the Stay Weird Tour, and it was basically, that's what it was. It was just 3 weird ass bands playing house parties, and it was the most fun ever. But man, I just can't stop thinking about the potential that we could have just creeped our way over to being like, so you guys need an opener on a tour, or killer. But
sorry, my phone is like freaking out. I'm not frowning at you. It's like, it's not.
You're all right. You're all right.
Is that light annoying on my face? I'm like under this thing.
No, you're good. You're good, man.
Cool.
But yeah, so since we started recent, let's go to the way back if we can. Like, where do you even start musically? Where would you pick up an acoustic guitar in your house? Like, how'd you even start playing music?
Yeah, I started playing drums. Well, I guess if you want to get technical, I started at the age of like 5 years old trying to belt out Take These Broken Wings, like in my bedroom,
Boy.
Take these broken wings and learn to fly again, learn to live so free. When we hear the voices sing, the book of love will open up and let us in. Take these broken wings.
I was obsessed with trying to sing along with the radio.
Sure.
Always as a kid. It was just this endless obsession to me. So for many hours as a child, I would just be in my room trying to sound exactly like anyone I could on the radio. Guys, girls, I didn't really care. I mean, I had 4 older brothers, and if I could count the amount of times that I was just hacked on by them for like, I'm singing like Baby Let's Cruise or something, and I'm like trying to hit the girl part and the dude part, and so I spent a lot of time doing that, but it was kind of this sort of secret thing that was just like, I sing in my bedroom with the door locked and closed, and I sing in my car by myself. But by the time I was like 16 or 17, I started really wanting to play drums. My dad is a drummer, and he was a drummer and a lead singer for his band.
Nice.
All through the 70s and 80s. He would play in Vegas as like a cover band. So,
Nice.
but like a serious working musician style cover band. So he'd be booked out at like the Hilton or something in Vegas for a month, and he'd be playing like 8 hours a night, 6 days a week, like ridiculous amount of performing. So he was a drummer and lead singer of that. So he had this old Tama Rockstar kit that he was packed up in his garage. And so I told him, hey, I want to learn to play drums. And so ended up borrowing the kit from him, but it was sitting in like an Arizona garage for 20 years. And so the lugs, like with their cheap, like, metal coated, but plastic underlaying, were within about 1 month of playing it, I'd snapped, I think, probably like 16 lugs, like half the floor tom, half of one of the rack toms, with a couple snare lugs popped. And I had called, Guitar Center or something like that, and was saying, what is it? What's the cost of like 16 lugs? I need to get these things replaced. And the guy said, yeah, that's like an 80s Rockstar kit. They don't do that kind of screw spacing anymore. And it's going to be like $3,500 these like 16 lugs or something for this kit. So I quit drums.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, all right, I can't play drums. And this guy that was coming over to teach me drums was another kid my age, but who was actually pretty good. Had been playing since he was like 10. And so we were both 16, and he was coming over giving me lessons. He's like, well, dude, I'm starting up this Christian band, and like, we need a singer. And I was like, well, I sing, And so he's like, why don't you come try out? So I came and tried out, and, for as good as a, 17-year-old like kid who was super into like Pantera and Creed at the time, was trying to mock, those singers. I became the new, like, Eddie Vedder, like Scott Stapp runoff singer for this little Christian band.
What was the name of that band? Do you remember?
And that band was called Justified, and they went on. Those guys went on to do. But it kind of like morphed into rap rock or something.
Sure, why wouldn't it?
When POD was making a strong.
Yeah.
Some their height of popularity or whatever, So I had ended up. Yes, Jane, you have a question.
It's nighttime.
Jane says it's nighttime.
Oh, do we need to be quiet?
It's nighttime already. What does that mean?
You're staying out here when it's nighttime.
Is it dangerous?
Well, coyotes stay out.
Yeah, she's right. I won't keep Dad out much longer.
Coyotes are going to be here soon, man.
That's all right.
So thank you, Jane, for the warning.
Thank you, Jane.
Thank you so much. So I ended up being in that band for about 9 months, and then it turned into this whole thing where I don't want to throw these guys under their bus, but it got really silly because their parents were the managers too. Okay. It was this very like over-controlled, highly Christian thing where it was like, dude, we feel like your girlfriend is really distracting you from this band, and you really need to commit. And the guy was asking me to drop out of high school and get a GED and try to take this thing on the road.
What?
And I was like, dude, I'm like in my junior year of high school, and I've got like one more year, and I don't think touring right now is really going to make a difference. And so it turned into this whole thing where they basically gave me an ultimatum. It was like, either you drop out of high school and break up with your girlfriend, or we're going to have to look for another singer, And I was like, all right, I'm out, And so I left, and then at that point I was like, well, now that I don't have a drummer and a guitar player and a bass player to help work out these, for that band I was just the singer, So I was like the MC, you know, or whatever of
Yeah.
the band, and I didn't play an instrument. I was just charged with like, we came up with these rock riffs, like lay down a vocal and write lyrics, you know.
Yeah.
So I started, that's kind of how I started. It was like, I find some lyrics, and so every song was basically like, life is tough, life is hard, but God will make it okay.
Yeah.
And it's pretty much the same message every time.
Right.
Um, and so when that ended, I had to like learn an instrument. So I decided, I went down to this place called Brinley's Music in Chandler, and it's this mom and pop music store. And I bought my first little guitar for $99. It was a little Hohner acoustic guitar.
Nice.
And so I started learning guitar, and my buddy Casey Terrazas, who is actually the guy who started Porch Party Records, that's putting out our records. Him and I have been best friends since seventh grade. I guess technically ninth grade, but
Sure.
seventh grade started hanging out, and so he started showing me stuff on the guitar. He'd kind of taught himself guitar, and so I started playing there and learning that. And then for the next, from like 19 to 21, I started trying to work on writing my own songs, and you know, basically once I learned GCD, I was like ready to roll forever. That, you know. So I ended up trying to write some stuff, and then eventually my buddy Joel, who was the original guitar player for Deer in the Headlights on the Small Steps album, he said, you should start this band, these songs are pretty cool, and you know, let's get this thing going. So that's kind of when Deer in the Headlights started. It was good 2 years after I started trying to kind of learn to play guitar. I didn't start playing guitar till I was 19.
Okay. Wow.
Super late
Yeah.
into the game, you know, at that point.
Well, that's pretty impressive too, that you went for, that was only your second band, really. You went from Justified to Deer in the Headlights.
Justified for 9 months. I don't even know if it's even possible to find the that record anymore.
Yeah.
You know, there's like 1,000 copies that were ever made, and we recorded it in some guy's garage. And yeah, if you ever have the chance to track that down and you want to hear me do a really bad impression of Scott Stapp, get involved.
I'll see what I can find in a day's time. That's great, though.
Burn me with that shit later, please.
At least you have a sense of humor about it.
You got to have an entirely huge sense of humor about most of your life.
That's true too. That's true. So how long after the Deer in the Highlights is formed do you guys come out with Small Steps?
God, yeah. So we started trying to put Deer in the Headlights together. There was probably a 2-year process of trying people out, recording, trying to get drummers, trying to get someone else to play guitar, trying to get whatever. And I remember we, like, you know, I think we tried out 14 different people or something like that. And I'd gotten super frustrated with it. And so I decided to just leave and move to California. And I was going to just go start my own thing out in California and try to write some songs out there. Ended up not really like understanding how extremely expensive California was, but I just ended up working 16 hours a day at DHL delivering packages and stuck in like traffic forever. And so I wrote a few songs. Like I wrote "Oh No" out there. I wrote "Oh No" on in my buddy John's garage. And that whole song was kind of about his parents were pretty religious, and his dad came out into the garage while I was like working on music and tried to give me this whole talk about like coming back to the Lord and kind of all this stuff. And I was just extremely annoyed at the entire deal. So that's kind of like where "Oh No" came from.
Okay.
Was just like smirking smirking the whole time Jim spoke. You know, he doesn't have a clue. Like that was the whole talk I was getting out there, giving me all these sort of acronyms about how to know you're saved and all this kind of stuff.
Oh no, I had a thought and a feeling. I watch them fast and loose. I wonder what to do. I wonder what to do. Oh no, smoking the old time Jim spoke. He doesn't have a clue. I wonder what to do. I wonder what to do.
I hope I'm not offending, but I probably am. But
hey, because of that, you got a great song out of it. So you have to go through stuff like that.
So there was this process of starting writing some of those songs out there, and then in the midst, before I had left, Chucky, our original bass player, had recorded 3 or 4 demos of us.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't playing for us at that point, but was kind of bummed when I was decided I'm out and was just going to move to California and call it off, because he's just like, dude, songs are really cool. I don't know why you would just want to leave and do something else. And but it's kind of always been me. I've tried to quit music probably 5 or 6 times in my life, and it won't leave me alone. It's just like haunting my mind and my thoughts all day long, every day. I'm like, okay, dude, all right, I guess you got to keep working on it and trying it. And so he had basically called after I'd been living out in California for about a year. He called me and said, hey, I'm offering you a chance to come back here. I'll play bass. We found a drummer on Craigslist, Mark. He's going to be great. We booked a show. So we've been rehearsing without you the songs that we demoed, and we booked a show. So I need you to fly back out here and you're going to sing. And I'm like, okay. So that was kind of the start. We played our first show as Deer in the Headlights in the upstairs of Borders Bookstore on Mill Avenue down here in Tempe.
Nice.
And crazily 200 people came out to the Border. And I don't know if it was just like somehow like the 5 of us that were in that band, PJ was also part of the whole beginning process, as he was 16 when we started the band. And it was like me, Joel, and PJ. Chucky came on, and then Joel, Mark came on, and so between the 5 of us, just knowing a lot of people, we ended up having 200 people come out to this first show.
That's crazy.
So the show, the first time that we had ever even played together as a band was 2 hours before the show as our first full rehearsal. Wow. As a band. I would never do that. I would never ever do that again in my entire life. But it worked out, and that was kind of the beginning of Deer in the Headlights. And then we went and played a few more shows, and got a few more songs written, and then basically went to Bob Hogue and tracked our first record. Yeah. And then through Bob Hogue, I think he had recorded, like, I can't remember what the band was. I don't know if it was like The Bled or someone like that. Okay. That was on Equal Vision. I could be wrong. I'm not sure The Bled were even ever on Equal Vision or not, but he had recorded them and had some sort of contact with Equal Vision reps and said, hey guys, I think this record is actually really, really good. And, I think we should send this off to a label and see what happens. Yeah. And so Vision, and they bought the rec off of us, and then they gave us a 3-option deal. So it was kind of like, we'll put this record out, show us another record, and then we have the option of whether we want to put it out or drop you. Yeah. And we'll do that again for a third time around. And so after that, we started touring and kind of going out on the road a bit more. Then we recorded our second record, and they liked it and decided to put that one out. And then before we could get to the third one, everything just kind of fell. So.
Well, and I hate to ask, but I mean, it's 2007. That's almost 10 years, and in the slew of 10-year anniversary albums, people are going to start hunting you down and trying to get you guys to go back out. It's coming.
Yeah. I don't think it'll ever happen, man. I think that everybody that was a part of Deer in the Headlights is just like, yeah, that was fun.
Yeah.
But we've all moved on, and we're all enjoying the other projects that we've decided to be a part of or not be a part of at all. And so it's cruising. I think that, actually, I guess technically me and Mark are the only people really working on any projects seriously anymore. Jay had gone on to do a couple. Joel does, but he moved to Idaho, so a lot of his stuff has just kind of been on his own, I think, until he kind of reconnects with a few more people out there and maybe get some together, if he even wants to do that. He's already been through trying the 13-person band out and the gospel, the 5 or 6 person band out, so I don't know where he'll go with it next.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's easy for fans and other people to be like, oh, just get back together. What do you mean? It's just for a tour. Like, give me what I want. But, for those people, they don't realize, like, it was like, it's like a marriage or a relationship. It's like, let me be a fan of you and some girlfriend you had 15 years ago or 10 years ago and be like, why don't you just get back together and go on a date? I want to hang out with you guys. Like,
that's so much fun with you guys, why don't you guys get back together? We had such great dinners, Yeah. But, and it's not, and unfortunately the disbanding of Deer in the Headlights, there's not like, nobody hates anybody else. So, we're all still friends, and it's not weird, like I still talk to PJ, like still talk to Robert, still talk to Chucky all the time, so it's not, there's no awkwardness there. I think it's more just kind of like, dude, we're just doing something else now. I don't write songs like that anymore. I still write my style of song, but it's like you said, it's a progression of the style and not necessarily just trying to revamp some sort of old thing. Right. It's just, it's a continuation of what I was already doing in Deer in the Headlights. Was writing most of those songs anyway, aside from like Grace on the first album and maybe a couple on the second album that PJ and I worked on together. Yeah. But for the majority, good 80-90% of the record every time was just my songwriting style anyway, So like you said, with this General Hits record, it's you don't get this feeling of, wow, this is totally different, completely, it's still just Ian writing songs.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and like I said, it's not to denigrate or to say like, oh, it's just another album of Ian's. It's like, no, it's if you liked that other stuff, it is to be assumed that you would like this, because it's very much like that, but different and in the progressive way it should be. It's great, and it's really, having heard the story behind like everything that you had to go through, and then moving, and then your dad, and just all that stuff. It's like it's almost like watching the behind the scenes of a movie or a show. You're like, I gotta watch it again. I gotta look for that stuff on the background now. I gotta like hear for the lyrics, and like I can really connect to it now instead of just hearing the stuff. And oh, that's a pretty song. That's a nice melody.
Right. Yeah. And the way the album kind of works is like the first 4 songs are essentially me kind of dealing with my ego, my frustrations with work and endeavors of family, and just the regular like life irritation that takes place, the obligation and the things that you wish you didn't have to do, but you have to do all the time. And then this death happens, and that's where track 5, like Hospital Bed, comes in.
Yeah.
And then I feel like when my father passed, it hyper focused everything to me. Like anybody knows that's lost somebody that they deeply love, like your life becomes hyper focused at that moment, and you are so aware what is most important about life, about connection with other people, about existence. And what it all means is you know without a doubt that it's about love, that it's about people, that it's about your connections and your relationships, and not about any of the other bullshit or nonsense that you're not going to think about when you're dying.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of that's what happens on the record. So Hospital Bed hits, and then I'm Only on Your Side is like a song to my mother about, like, I'm here, like, I've got your back. This is the worst thing ever that's happened to any of us. You know, worst thing that's ever happened to our family, you know. And then, you know, Mr. Davis was the song that I performed at my dad's funeral.
Jesus, man.
And that was nearly impossible to to get through.
God.
And my dad, when I say my dad, he was my stepdad, but he raised me since I was 2 years old. So yeah, not the guy that was performing in Vegas, but the guy that was my biological father. But my stepfather was there in my life since I was 2 or 3, and pretty much taught me everything that I'd ever known about what it means to be a man or to be a decent human being. And so this death happens, and the record kind of focuses in and slows down really intensely at that point. And then once the death is kind of worked through and resolved, then the song kind of comes out being, the rest of the album kind of moves upward towards a transition of kind of recreating yourself, realizing what's important, realizing what matters, and going forward with what little time, you know, you actually have left. And, you know, my stepdad died at 66, you know, I'm 35 right now. So I'm looking at myself like, oh shit. Like, what if my life's half over at this, you know what I mean? And, or, you know, and it could be even more than that. You never know how you're going to go down. And so I think it was just this huge awakening to me about what, you know, especially to coming back to music, wanting to do that, wanting to put my stuff out there, wanting to express my art again to other people. It was just like, dude, we don't have that much time. We just need to try to do our ideas and stick really strongly to the things that we love and care about, and make those things happen, you know, because there's just not even close to a guarantee whatsoever. You know?
Jesus. Well, it's like you said, it's a heavy album in that way, but it's I think it's going to do a lot of people, you know, a lot of good to people who've lost other people in their lives, people who are just going through a tough time, like being able to connect and kind of push through those phases like you did in that. I think it's a good listen, just even outside of even knowing any of that. But I think it's just knowing the deeper levels of it. It's really hits home, really makes it like a special thing to listen to, man. So I think you did some really great work here.
You're just a handful of people that have actually heard this whole record all the way out. So I mean, it means a lot that just to know that you're enjoying it, and that you know it's been something that you've liked. So I appreciate that, man. That's really cool.
I appreciate you letting me listen to it early, and you should be proud of it, man. It's really great, and I can't wait for it to be out so I can just send it to anybody and everybody to listen to. It's really good. It's really good. And I've had you for an hour, and you've got little girls running around and coyotes in the wild. So you gotta get back to what you're doing. I will ask one more thing. What are any plans for shows, touring? What is the vision for the Gentle Hits, or like, what are you thinking?
Yeah. So kind of what we had talked about. Me, Mark, and James are kind of at this point where, like, you know, we've toured a ridiculous amount that we're like, don't care about shows at all anymore.
Yeah. Yep.
But then, you know, some of that's bullshit too, because it really is fun to get out there and to not only just to play, but like that hour or whatever that I'm playing songs, I go into some other place in my head that I don't ever seem to be able to get to anywhere else. And it's more just kind of being in your element, or doing your thing, you know, where you're watching that person who's just doing that thing they're supposed to be doing, and they just seem like completely in line with the universe is all right, at that moment. And so, yeah, we have talked about what we're going to do to kind of, because we recorded the whole record, just the three of us, essentially. Wayne came in and laid down his bass stuff, but he has his own band called Twin Ponies that he's a part of. That's like an alt rock kind of band that he fronts. So he's just kind of like, all right, guys, like, it's fun helping out with the record, but I really want to go back and front my band that I'm doing. But yeah, just recently I hit Wayne up and was like, hey dude, would you be interested in playing some bass on the record? And he's got a guitar player, Jacob, who's outstanding, like just, one of those guitar players where you're like, this guy's insane. So I asked Wayne and Jacob if they would be down to fill in bass and another auxiliary guitar, and they both said that they would love to. So
awesome.
So yeah, I've officially got a 5-piece deal together.
Nice.
We haven't rehearsed at all yet, but
well, I hate to tell you, you have a show in 2 hours down
I know,
the street.
right? Yeah, it's gonna be like
Barnes and Noble.
Again,
That's awesome.
Yeah, so we're definitely gonna start getting that thing going, and then we'll start playing some shows. I'm not sure what the touring thing will look like at this point. I think, especially because half of us have families or children or these other things. It's kind of like, we're not just going to be for some random mid-level band for $150 anymore, Yeah. And I think more what would be likely to happen is maybe, I guess what seems the funnest to me would be house shows.
Yeah.
I think I would just really love to get out there and just play for like 150 people in somebody's living room, but have the full understanding that every single person that's there really wants to be there.
Yeah.
Just makes the whole night so much better. I've gone to a couple things like that with David Bazan or like Richard Buckner or some of these guys that I really admire. And it's just been the coolest thing, because you go and you throw $20 at a show, but you're 10 feet away from this person that you just love their sound, and they're sitting there, either acoustic or with a couple, members, and it's just such a cool vibe. It's so much different than being 500 people back in some big club, and everybody, halfway back in the room is just talking constantly through the band you really want to see or whatever it is, but
yeah.
Sorry, I'm moving this stupid phone around a lot.
Good.
Yeah,
that's awesome, man. I hope that for you. That'd be a really cool way to have this album heard by people.
And I think, like, say we get some sort of cool opportunity to go out with a band that we think would be a important person to that there might be that chance where it's like, if Wilco called me tomorrow and was like, need an opener, I'd be like, oh yeah,
I guess.
But I think that's kind of where we're at. It's like we can't just take the $150 opportunity anymore. Most likely we would rather just headline our own stuff and not. I don't know if I'm just an old man now or what, but I can't stand going to a show that has more than 2 or 3 bands.
Yep.
Like I would rather I'd pay $30 just to not watch 2 openings. You know what I mean?
I hear you, man. I'm the same old man. I get
it. So I think I would rather, my ideal tour would be like us headlining and one other band that we absolutely love.
Yeah.
And it's just 2 bands, and it'll only take up like 2.5 hours of your time. And I think that going to those like 5 or 6 band bills that you were excited about when you were 15 or 16 is just not interesting. Your back just hurts too much.
Yeah, it's true, man. It's true.
It's so dumb.
It's exactly what it is, though. Well, that's great, man. Thank you so much for doing this tonight. I really appreciate it, man. We bounced around trying to get this to happen, and I'm usually the one pestering people, but you were just as much like, all right, let's do this thing. So it really meant a lot to me that you were down to do it, and being able to hear the album and just kind of talk through your history. It's really cool. From a big fan of yours, it's really cool to get a little bit of backstory and all this stuff, and to know that there's more coming from you. Like this album's coming out, and that there's people who haven't heard it yet. I'm excited to see some good responses and some people be excited about this project, man.
Yeah, man. But I can't wait to get this thing out. I actually already have another record written beyond this one. So
Of course you do.
So it's just kind of like, now that we know how to record everything on our own and make stuff happen, I can't wait to get this out, start playing it for people, and then just kind of just move on towards trying to regularly release stuff and not have an 8-year gap between albums anymore. So,
well, awesome, man.
Yeah,
I'm
man.
excited for you. I'm excited. You got beautiful kids. You got a nice little setup there. You got a good album coming out. Life's good.
Thank you. I really appreciate it, man.
Yeah, man. Thanks for the time. Enjoy everything that's coming out with this. I hope it all goes as well as I think it will. And when you got that second album ready to come out, you want to come on again and promote it, I'll have you anytime you want to come on again, man.
Let's do it.
Yes.
Cool.
Now go finish that beer and go hang with your daughters and play with some bubbles, man. Go do your thing.
Beers are gone, man. I'm gonna have to go back to the store.
Well, tell your daughters I say thank you for letting me get a little time with Dad tonight, and
I will. Yeah, thank you.
Get inside and don't get bit by those coyotes.
There's no coyotes in our house.
Okay.
That's what I like to hear.
There's none inside. You hear that? We're
That's
totally
right.
secure. There's no coyotes in there.
Dad will make sure that still happens.
Hey, Daddy,
What's up?
All right.
Oh, they're watching the debate. All right. Mom's watching the debates, so I guess we got to go inside
That's
and
true.
watch Donald Trump just ruin himself. All right.
Good. Enjoy. Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
Sounds good.
Take
See ya.
care.